Have you ever considered why we have 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 24 hours? They're an unusual name. We count in base 10. Why don't we have 100 seconds and 100 minutes and say 30 or 25 hours? Well, we count in base 10, but the ancients counted in base 12. Your thumb is the counter, and you've got 3 segments on each finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 24. If I count 12, count again, 24, 36, 48, 60. That's why we have 60 seconds, 60 minutes and 24. The ancients counted in base 12. New Zealand is famous for its bohutakawa trees, and they're just starting to come out. And as you can see, they're red. They're known as the Christmas tree. So I'm next to a bohutakawa tree. I'm going to be talking about this. The colour fits in with the tree. Jorge Luis Borges. And it's the Library of Babel. Short stories. And wow, does he put a lot into a short story. The one I'm going to talk about is only 21 pages. Well, probably less than that. It starts at 21 pages. Called The Garden of Forking Paths. The subject is time. Well, does time really exist? That's one question. But he posits that there's forking periods of time. It's a bit like the film in the 90s with Gwyneth Paltrow, which was Sliding Doors. So she's in London on the Underground, waiting for a tube train to come to the platform. It does, doors open. She literally is walking into the train when somebody comes out of the train and they bump into each other, and it leads to them becoming an item. But the film also posits the same scene where she's slightly down the platform, goes onto the train on another door, and the person that she would have bumped into walks off and they never meet. So are there multiple versions of time? And the story is very simple. So the story starts in media res, in the middle of the action. And it turns out it's World War I. You don't know at first, but it's someone who's running away from somebody who wants to get them. There's been a murder. And through revelation, what is shown to us, that this gentleman is of Chinese extraction, but he's working for the Germans in World War I. He's a spy. And who is after him is a spy catcher. And he's in Britain. And he's he needs to get a message across to the Germans, but in a way he can't do that in the war. He's in England. He's found out where the next massive British push is going to be and against what town. How does he get the message across to Germany? And I won't reveal that because it's very well done. Why is he working for the Germans? Well, Germany had a concession in China up to the time of the Boxer Rebellion. In fact, nearly all Western nations did. And he became into the German orbit because of that. So this man from German-controlled China at the time had an ancestor who had been a governor in ancient times, in an ancient province, and had given it all up, wealth, power, to construct what was thought to be a maze, a labyrinth, but no one had ever found it. And it had been this enigma, where is this maze? Anyway, we find that out about this man. He randomly goes to a place by train into England somewhere, well, I won't say where it is, and he meets a man there who knows he's about to arrive, strangely. They never met each other. And he said, yeah, I know about your ancestor. It wasn't a labyrinth, it was a book. And it's about time. The labyrinth of time. He basically, this gentleman, shows him the document of his ancestor. And I won't say what happens because it's very well done how it ends and what it means. But you read the story and you realise it's circular, but with different levels of time. So he, in one dimension, one time dimension, timeline, they could have been friends. But in this timeline, the man from China ends up wanting to kill this Englishman. Never met him before, but he's going to kill him. In another timeline, they could have been brothers. In another timeline, they may never have met at all. But in this timeline, something has to happen, and it does. And although it's only in a small amount of pages, wow, it gets you thinking. So, the guy is called Albert, says, the Garden of Forking Paths is a huge riddle or parable whose subject is time. It's incomplete but not false image of the universe. Unlike Newton and Schopenhauer, your ancestor did not believe in a uniform and absolute time. He believed in an infinite series of times, a growing, dizzying web of divergent, convergent, and parallel times. That fabric of times that approach one another, fork, are snipped off, or are simply unknown for centuries, and contain all possibilities. In most of those times, we do not exist. In some, you exist, but I do not. In others, I do, and you do not. In others still, we both do. It's the unfathomable problem of time. And it's one of those, as soon as you read it, if you're obviously into such things, and I plainly am, it really gets you thinking. So in this timeline, I happen to be here talking now and you're listening. In another timeline, I would not exist, but you would. You may be listening to someone else. In another timeline, you did not exist. I'm talking, but it's talking to somebody else, and so on. It's just amazing how random it is that we meet people and things happen, and it's this converging of times. So time, that implausible thing, but does it exist? Philosophy shortcuts. It asks about the fourth dimension, time. St. Augustine said that he understood it perfectly, except when he needed to explain it to someone else. Then he didn't understand it at all. The fourth dimension, where past, present and future all exist, laid out in the block universe. The past still exists in some sense, and the future is already set to be a certain way. And he talks about the grandfather paradox. That if you go back and kill your grandfather before he sired your father, then plainly you would not exist, and therefore can you go back and logically kill your grandfather, and so on. Well, according to Luis Borges, yes, if there's forking paths of time. There is not just one timeline, there's many. In all fictions, each time a man meets diverse alternatives, he chooses one and eliminates the others. In the work of the virtually impossible to disentangle Zui Pen, that's the ancient governor who wrote the book, and they thought he did a maze, the character chooses simultaneously all of them. He creates thereby several futures, several times which themselves proliferate and fork. So right now I'm going to close the door and drive off in this timeline. In another timeline, I'd sit here talking to the camera a bit longer. In other timelines, I wouldn't have come here today. In some timelines, I would have come here and met somebody by chance that we end up having a lifelong friendship. There are many short stories in this little book. The Library of Babel, which is another good one, and so on. There were two people visiting from Argentina, and I got talking to them about Borges and a guy called Sabado who did The Tunnel. And they know about Argentinian writers. And the gentleman was saying, yeah, he's amazing because he always have a riddle within each story. Fascinating. Really worth the effort. But there you go. The Garden of Forking Paths. Ta-ta for now.